Kia ora and welcome to another episode of The Leadership Lounge. I'm Katie, I'm your host, and I've been working in healthcare for over 3 decades, and I get to work with leaders and their teams so that they can feel more excited, more hopeful, more supported in the work that you do every day in healthcare. The Leadership Lounge is a space for you to feel a breath of fresh air, I suppose, and that fresh perspective, getting a new, fresh take on the work that you're doing every day. And so this week, I was thinking as I was recording, by the time this goes out, it will be in December. So welcome, December. Hello, December. Now, the start of that Advent period, I get quite excited because I love movies to the best of times, but December then allows me to indulge 100% in Christmas movies, from the good, the bad and the ugly. I like to embrace them all, and so I create my own movie advent, and I've done this over the years in a number of different formats. So sometimes it's a list. I've been sharing it through the No Jedi email, so big plug there to sign up now so that you don't miss out on any Christmas treats that might be coming your way. And last year, my in-laws were here and we did it as a bit of we voted. We watched a movie and then all voted our different scores and came up with the winner at the end. So that was quite fascinating, with the 4 of us with very different opinions on what makes a good Christmas movie. And other years, we'll do it as a lucky dip, pull it out of a boot and see what we're going to be watching. A plastic kind of little Christmas boot, not an actual boot, by the way. But this year I'm just going to make a list. So if you would like to see that list, I'm going to be popping that up on Instagram and the Facebook page so that you can join in and feel free to criticize and comment on my Christmas movie options and choices and tell me what your favorite Christmas movie is. The other thing I'll be doing is a thing called December Reflections. It's created by a woman called Susanna Conway, and she is a woman who I have followed along for some time. I've done some of her courses. I really enjoy the way she has curated and created her business, but also in the way that she's created a community. And December Reflections is an Instagram photo challenge. She has a list of words, prompts, and the invitation is to pop a photo on for each day. And it's a great way to slow down a little and just stop and think about some of those ideas and get a bit of a reflection moment on the month, but also the year. So again, I'll pop a link in the show notes for that, but it'd be delightful if you could join along, because the community she's created is this really very supportive, very inspiring community. So just by being part of that, you kind of join in with that is uplifting. Now, given that last week we talked about vertical development and the components of what makes vertical development and the heat experiences, the reflection and the colliding perspectives, you would think that, talking about December reflections and the opportunity to slow down coming into December was a beautifully well thought out plan for this podcast around what I would then go and talk about reflections. But, no, not going to talk about reflection. I am, though, going to pick up on the topic of vertical development because it is such a big topic. There's so much in it that you could delve down further. But I guess the reason why I think it's important to delve a bit further is that I believe it's kind of crucial for healthcare right now, because you don't have to go off and do a course to do this. This is something that if you're intentional and can think about, you can be vertically developing right here, right now. And so understanding those components in a bit more detail will help you make sure that you're actually making the most of those opportunities that are probably just being flung at you wherever you are. So this week I wanted to get into that idea of colliding perspectives and the network. And really it was through the synergy of the universe, if you're into that kind of stuff. I was writing a blog post about what your network should look like, what it needs to be made up of, why we have them, all of this stuff. And the blog post was coming together beautifully. I was very proud of it. The formatting was looking great. The pictures were looking stunning. And I was like, yes, this is one of those podcasts that I'm just going to press, publish, and it's going to be so cool. Now, I don't know about you, but I am one of those women that have a gazillion tabs open on my computer at the same time. I know you're not supposed to, but I do. Here's confession time here as we head into December. And I have a number of things running, and my old laptop is probably struggling to keep up with what I expect it to do, to be fair. And I do try to push it to its limit. So I have a number of things open all the time. And so it can get a little bit laggy and a little bit slow. And so as I'm doing the stuff, I'm writing the blog post, I realized it was. So I thought, let's try and close a few tabs. And I go to shut a few down, and unintentionally, and I obviously didn't mean to do this, but I closed the tab where I was writing my blog post. Now, extra lesson that I got through this little experience was I write directly into my website and the podcast goes there. I don't pre-write in another document and then copy and paste. It goes straight in. I don't have time for all that faffing around. So it goes straight in. And while I love Squarespace for all the stuff that it allows me to do, it does not autosave. And so it was with slight trepidation that I open up the page again, and yes, it's all gone. The whole morning's work gone, and I'm like, the world sunk. I was so angry, so frustrated at myself and generally the world. Everything was wrong, and I wanted to smash something. I have a hidden rage, and I was gonna kick actually is what I really, really wanted to do. Now, thankfully, I noted that would not be helpful in this particular situation. So I tapped in as to go, what do I really need? What is actually going to help me in this moment? So I pick up the phone. My first phone call is to Adam and my husband, and he wasn't able to pick up. Now, fair call to him, right? He's a nurse, he's at work, I'm disturbing him. There's no problem there. That's why you have more than one person in your network. Second person, I pick up the phone. And I pick up the phone to Mark, and we have a phenomenal conversation that gets me back on track. Now, the point of this story, I'm going to go into that a lot more, is that there is joy. This conversation I had with Mark was joyous. Now, it's a weird time to talk about joy. And while, yes, we're coming into December, I would like to say that joy is not just for Christmas, and that joy in work is something that should be on our list of goals, should be a metric we should be able to measure in some shape or form. Now, if you're in New Zealand, what has happened in this last week has been some announcements with more extensive disestablishments of roles within various sectors within the health system. We've also had news that half of the nurses who have recently qualified, only half are getting jobs. Half of them are going to be without jobs. And yes, there are going to be options and opportunities and pathways that they're going to be able to go down, but it wouldn't have been the job that they were potentially hoping for when they first qualified. So with all of that news, with all of that kind of sinking feeling about what on earth, why, Katie, are you talking about joy? You're getting the mark wrong. So I would say that in those moments, that is exactly the time we need to be clear and sure as to what joy is. Why are we having this conversation? Why are we doing what we're doing? It's even more important to be talking about what joy in work actually is, because this is the creation space. So the conversation I had with Mark was a joyous conversation. And it's this connection for me in my mind between our joy in work and the people we get to interact with. Now, when I talk to people and they are sharing their stories as to why they do what they do, why do they keep coming back, they can tell me about these most horrendous days and horrendous experiences. It is the people every time. It's my team. It's the people. It's why you do what you do, and it's why you keep coming back. And so that's the joy part. And that is also about understanding your network. And so there's this real connection here. So the network work isn't as hard work as it might sound. So I first met Mark he was facilitating a leadership development course that I was doing. He was by Jumpshift, what was called Jumpshift then, they're now called Adeption, and I was loving the content, I was loving the connection within the teams, within the group that we were working in, but I was also really enjoying watching Mark deliver. And I don't think I've ever told him this, but it was probably the first seed planting of the thought of when I looked and I thought, I could do that. And I would like to do that. The sharing the stories all around leadership, all around how we show up as our best selves, all about how we create great teams and how we create sustainable working. Those kind of conversations, that's what I've continued having and continued doing. So that was the seed planting. So watching Mark deliver that and facilitating those sessions was the seed planting for what I do, why I do, and what I do now. And our relationship has ongoing. I facilitated a session with him. That was a blast. I have joined Adeption as an associate coach, and we have phoned each other on odd occasions for advice, for just an ear to listen to, for someone that can just, maybe answer some questions or maybe have an idea. Mark is one of those people that you would call a super connector. He has connected me with other people that I've had great conversations with, and he does that the world over, connecting people. He is phenomenal. And so it is a pleasure, delight to have him in my network. But it's this idea of the joy that came from this conversation. So I phone him up and I rant down the phone about this frustration and anger, and I've spent all morning, I'm so angry. And he does one of those laughs that's not a laugh, that makes you know that you have been heard and your frustrations have been heard, but it gives it a fresh perspective around things. And we have a great chat. We're talking about what's going on, how things are, how the families are, all of that stuff. And he gives me a couple of ideas for the rewrite of the blog post. He gives me a couple of people to connect in with to just extend my knowledge about network, and because I'm explaining why I'm nerding out so much on vertical development at the moment. And he gives me a phenomenal book recommendation. So Mark, if you're listening, thank you for that. That book, Go Giver, I'll pop a link in for it, is exactly the book I need to be listening to right now. So you see the joy? Could you hear the energy in my voice there from that one conversation? And it wasn't a long conversation. It was about 5 minutes, give or take. And yes, there's that space of ranting, and a lot of people talk about I need a space to rant. And yes, I did rant, but then we then got back on track. I then got up with some actions. So it's a really cool part about the network here, that the people in your network are not just going to kind of agree with you and keep on rolling down the hill with you. They're going to hold you and maybe push you back up the hill and into that direction. So the idea is that there is joy in the people that we work with, and that creates and builds joy in work. And when we can hone and build a network that can support that and we can support it, that's just going to double up your joy, I guess. So the message there is that get yourself a mark on your network. Have a little think about who is on your network, and I'm going to give you some pointers on what that could look like at the moment. Get yourself a Mark or a Katie so that you've got someone that you can pick up the phone to and have one of those powerfully releasing and direction-filled and joyous conversations. And so this idea of network, it really connects in with that idea that I've also talked about. I talk about these things a lot, right? This idea of connection, that we are wired to be connected. We are not meant to do this work alone. So Brené Brown talks about her square squad. We can often talk about your crew. It is those type of concepts that we're talking about here. So this is about thinking about it from a perspective of vertical development. And in particular, the component when you need vertical development is this idea of colliding perspectives. So what does your network need to look like and be if you're going to have those colliding perspectives? Now, Nick Petrie, who I mentioned last week, and I'll pop the links to his website in the show notes. When he was talking about network, he talks about it as like, you think about it as the people on your bus, your minibus. And the first thing he'll say is that you need a bus for your future. Most people have a network for their past. You need a network for your future. So it's about thinking about where you're heading, the direction you're going in, that sort of stuff, and building that kind of network. So there are 3 elements that make up an effective, good professional network. And we start off with an open network. And if we think about the analogy of the bus and the people on the bus, if you've got an open network, then the people on the bus don't necessarily all know each other. You're going to be getting information and hearing different things from different sources. They haven't all got the same pot of knowledge or pot of information coming at you. Open network is also going to be able to introduce you to more people and different people. And I think the thing that strikes me about an open network when I think about it from a healthcare sector and perspective, we often talk about the silos and the different teams. If your network is your team and just your team, bit of a closed network, everyone's going to be knowing each other. If you can start to open up your network and meet and get to know people from other departments, other teams, a bit more open, that is the way that you start to break down silos and all those barriers that get in the way of things getting done. That's that idea of that colliding perspectives that you're going to be bringing in to your conversations, to the information that you're getting, and that you are contributing into those conversations. So open network is your first point. The second point, or the second thing a network needs to be, is diverse. And diverse network means that it crosses boundaries. So it's this idea of all the boundaries that we have within our world and our lives. And when I first got into this, I did a course years ago now with Acumen Academy, a place I would highly recommend if you are looking for courses, a fantastic range. And unfortunately, you don't want to get your hopes up here, but I had a check, and the Networking 101 course that I did all those years ago is not currently available. So sorry for that sudden build up and massive disappointment. But part of this course was doing a bit of a network analysis, and this is something you can easily do using these kind of criteria. And of course, I have created a little snazzy little tool to help you, of course, as I do. So there'll be a link to download that in the show notes. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, network analysis. And I realized that all the people in my network were all white women, pretty much, and all in the same age range. So not crossing many boundaries in that perspective. But you can think about boundaries in actually about 5 different categories. And you can think about it vertical. So it's up and down the hierarchy within wherever you're working or the system that you're in. And we are good at that in healthcare. So yes, you need people further up, but you also need people further down. And then horizontal, and that's across the different teams and the different areas, within, there are so many people that keep a healthcare system functioning. It's those type of across the teams boundaries that you need to cross. And then there's stakeholders. So this is also the people that we are serving, the people that other people that come on in. So there's a lot in that stakeholder space, very easily matched with the work that you do in healthcare. And then there's demographic boundaries. So like I said, mine were all white women in the same age. So we've got backgrounds, ages, genders, races, nationalities. All of that is your demographic boundaries that you need to cross to have a diverse network. The last one is geographic. Now, I think given the changes occurring again in the New Zealand Te Whatu Ora health system right now, a lot of the shifts and changes, I think, is going to be dependent on us being able to establish networks geographically. I think there's an opportunity in that, but I also think a lot of the success of our future lies on being able to establish that. So this can be thought about from a number of layers, this idea of your network and why this matters. That yes, that person, like I phoned up Mark, the space and the joy and the direction that you get. But equally, when we start to think about the future of our healthcare system, this is really important. The third thing that your network needs to be is deep. Now, the depth of your network refers to the connection and the trust and the understanding that you have with all of those people on the bus. So there's a lot of ways that can come about. It can be through frequency of contact. So that's the connection to why only about 12 to 15 people in this core professional network, because you can't have deep relationships with 100 people. And so I think this is interesting in when you get the friends on Facebook or the Instagram followers, you can't have deep relationships with all those people. So this idea of a bus load of people, you can create deep relationships there. So frequency of contact, but also the meaningfulness of the contact that you're having. These are your safe spaces. They are your sounding board. They are building your thinking. They're also going to be able to challenge you. So they're not the people that are just going to nod and smile and say yes. But the depth of connections means that you get a great sense of commitment and collaboration in those spaces. So when you're looking at who's on your bus, the bus that's driving you towards the future, have you got a network that is open, diverse, and deep? Those are the three components, and they're the things that are going to help pull in those colliding perspectives for you as you are vertically developing, that vertical development moments that you are having. Now, the final thing, and it does connect with the book that Mark recommended in that great conversation that I had with him last week. The most important thing about building a network, and this was a game changer for me really, because I'm a pretty ambitious person over the years, and this idea of what can I get from that person, what is knowing that person going to give me, and that was a bit of a driver, and that is pretty much the opposite way you should think about it. And another great book to read on this is called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And quote from him, it says, "It's better to give before you receive, and never keep score. If your interactions are ruled by generosity, your rewards will follow suit." So this idea of when you're establishing and building up the people on your bus, do it from a space of generosity and service. Do it from what can I give? What have I got to offer? What am I contributing into this network? What have I got to give? I know Mark knows that he can pick up the phone to me, and I have people that pick up the phone to me. So again, get yourself a Mark or a Katie so you've got those people that you can pick up the phone to, but equally that they can call you. So it's a really core and important part of building your network, that it comes from a space of service and generosity and what you can give, not just what you can get. So I've been making notes as I've been tittering along here for the links that I put in the show notes for all these kind of topics that we've talked about. And really what it comes down to is the why having a network and being really conscious of your network matters, what it can get for you, but what you can contribute and give into those spaces. They make your day better. They can break down silos and give you fresh, colliding and amazing perspectives. They can make your day better, put you back on track, keep you from falling right down, but equally you can give so much into that space. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Leadership Lounge. Be great to see you in a couple of those December reflections, or hearing your comments around my Christmas Advent movie choices. That would be great to hear from you and what you'll be watching in the lead up to Christmas. I will be back. Oh yes, and on that, of course, if we're going into December and the December things of the movies, I do want to say I'm managing to do I've mentioned probably a couple of weeks ago now, the yoga challenge I was doing during November. This intention around being a little bit more active. November yoga challenge going well. Very excited, very proud of how I'm going. So yes, we'll be moving into December. Be great to have you along on that, as we'll be back and hearing how it goes through the next couple of weeks. So yes, I'll be back next week for another episode of the Leadership Lounge. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely week. Take care. And remember, you're probably doing better than you think.